Good morning, market snipers. This is Jesse. It's about 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Welcome back to the live stream here. We're doing Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Like I said, today we have a lot to cover. We're going to cover Bitcoin. We're going to cover the NASDAQ futures. We'll cover the U.S. 10-year yield, the dollar, gold, silver, VIX. We're going to cover some crypto assets. As you can see, it's all on my watch list. And we'll even take a peek at the Magnificent Seven. Will Bitcoin hit target 4 of target 3? Let's find out. We'll take a quick glance at it today, but we're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive. I'll do a video later this evening because I put out a poll on Twitter or the X app, and it seems like the poll is pushing for a Bitcoin update and doing a little bit of a deeper dive. So we'll take a quick glance at it today. We're looking at it right now. It's hit target 3 of target 4 so far. And will crypto continue to bounce and hit additional targets? So we'll take a look at that. Special guest should be joining us today. Dr. Nick is returning. So we'll have Nick jump on, do some charts as well. But we want to get through some charts in the next 15 to 30 minutes. I'm going to start going right down the line. And then, of course, we'll check in with all the comments, say hello to everybody. Hello. And get this chart party started on this Monday morning. If you're wondering why I have a different camera, well, that's because 10 minutes before I logged in, the regular higher definition camera was out of battery, so it's currently charging right now. Classic Jesse move, right? So that's okay. We're using the laptop camera today, and the most important thing is you want to see the charts anyway. It's not the normal view of the camera. So if I'm looking away or up and away, and it's a different view, that's the reason why. So with all that, welcome. Thanks for coming back. Mauricio, good morning. Good morning, Mauricio. Doc, good morning. Look at the chart pattern for the S&P 500 in 1987. Now the parallels are amazing. Okay, yeah. I've done some comparisons on a potential bigger stock market crash. Definitely check out that video. Had a lot of views on that one compared to the other videos. So definitely, I did a deeper dive. I did more of a comparison with the NASDAQ, a little bit of the S&P 500, but definitely check out that video, Doc, if you haven't already. But I spent 25 minutes on it. I talked about it a lot over the last year and a half. I talked about it less on the rally because wanted to put all the focus into the swing trading of actually nailing the rally, right? So, but yeah. I'm sure there's some similarities there. Good morning, Shankar. Welcome back. Although that's an ugly looking candle so far. Yeah, but the candle hasn't closed yet. Could be shorter term. You can see, we'll dive into it, but it is getting pretty far extended away from the trending dots. Could consolidate. So we'll take a look at Aldo. Oswaldo Flores, good morning. Welcome back. Aldo, could we do all go crypto? Sure. Yeah, we'll take a look at it. You're the first request, so we'll definitely jump on there. Emmanuel, good morning. Welcome back. Let's go, Sniper fam. Oh, yeah. All right. So let's start with the NASDAQ futures update, right? And what we always like to do is kind of a back to, I'm going to keep looking at see if Dr. Nick comes into the studio. I gave him a link kind of late. So, I was scrambling with the camera, thinking I could charge it and play at the same time, but I probably could, but my tech support only goes so far, so I had to pivot real quick and just go to the laptop camera. So not a big deal, but so here's the NASDAQ futures. The quick recap version of it is you got the bearish divergence. Oh, there we go. Now we've got Dr. Nick joining us now. We're going to add him on. Good morning, Dr. Nick.
How's it going, team? Sorry, I had some minor technical difficulties there.
Me too. You missed it, but I was saying that I'm on a different camera because 10 minutes before I figured out that I needed to charge my higher definition camera. And so that's always fun. So I'm on the laptop camera, no big deal. And I was saying that I got you the link kind of late. So but here we are. We're already into the charts. Just a quick recap. Talked about we're going to go over Bitcoin, pretty much everything you see on this 10-year, the 10-year yield, but everything you see on this list, at least 10 assets. We'll do Bitcoin a little bit, but I'm going to do a deeper dive on Bitcoin later tonight, just because I put out a poll on the X app, and looks like the poll is saying that it wants a deeper dive on Bitcoin. So I'll do that, like a 10-minute video. We'll go over the metals, gold, silver, VIX, and then some of these crypto assets. So I kind of jumped right into the NASDAQ, doing the bearish divergence, the lower high, hit target one, second lower high, retested target one, and then I put out this. I talked about it. As price was coming down back here on previous live streams, that at some point, it's going to put in a third lower high, right? So wherever that third lower high is, we're ready for it. It could be anything, right? It could be, since this breakdown, maybe it's putting in a bearish flag, right? Mm-hmm. So putting that bearish flag potentially, and that third lower high, right? So what that would kind of look like is, price comes down, hit this target, kind of puts in this bear flag. And we talked about this. You can go back to previous live streams and drew out this exact same scenario, and then see if it comes and it starts breaking down from there. So that's kind of what I'm watching. What are you seeing on the NASDAQ futures right now?
Totally agree. I think the third lower high is happening. Only thing, right? And this is semantics and doesn't functionally matter either way. But I just wonder if maybe it comes up a hair higher than what you've got drawn there, still puts in the lower high, kind of just retests that longer term trend line and then dumps off of that. But yeah, I mean, it definitely feels, especially when you jump down a little bit onto lower time frames, like it's kind of flagging up, and it might just kind of roll over here on us.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, we'll be ready for it. And the reason why I have this trend line kind of drawn out already is because once it starts breaking below that, that's when I think it's happening anyways, right? So it's really just off of the simple 1-2 wicks right there, and kind of extended it out. So the previous live stream talked about kind of whatever it does, right? You're ready for it, right? So it could come back up, hit some higher targets. It seems like that would be the more difficult trade for people, is if it actually, put in like some sort of a buy signal, came up, hit higher targets, maybe even back tested this trend line, because it would shake out bears or late entries and capture some more bulls. That seems like it would be the tougher trade, in my opinion. This bear flag seems like it would be too easy, but we'll take easy too, right? Every once in a while, we can take an easier trade.
Take easy. And one comment on that, maybe this isn't fair to say across the board or whatever, but I do feel like a lot of the times the indices and the metals, and to some extent like oil and gas as well, kind of trade easier. You know what I mean? Whereas Bitcoin would do it's going to do a deviation back up into the range that we just broke down below, right? Fake everybody out, to your point, get all the bulls excited, and then roll over and die. Sometimes the futures are just a little cleaner than that and don't have as many of those fake outs. So to your point, we'll take easy, right?
Yeah, I think it's, partly because I'm sure the market cap is bigger, right? So I feel like the bigger the market cap, the less they can push it with all the leverage that's going on. Right. In the shorter term, yes, they can push it considerably quickly, right? You've witnessed that on silver probably and stuff like that, where sometimes there's just some big, massive moves on the smaller market caps or whatever they're doing. But if the market cap is bigger, it seems like it takes more money to push it one way or the other. So, but that's the NASDAQ. Let's keep going, and then I'm gonna have you jump in on some maybe some of these crypto assets, and we'll share your chart. But I'm just gonna jump just some quick things that we've been covering on a regular basis. You've got the 10-year yield is still ultra bullish on the weekly chart, right? Still ultra bullish. If you look at the monthly chart, still ultra bullish. So I know people have been calling for pullbacks and crashes and retracements, but what we do is we just stare at the charts over and over and over again. And by doing so, we can stay neutral and just say, hey, despite what all the macro experts and trading experts say, we can say that, hey, this was looking like it was some sort of like a bull flag being put in on a higher time frame, like the weekly chart. We were talking about and calling it out that there was a weekly buy signal back here, and it's just been bullish ever since. And you can see like you've got this fairly parabolic trend line already, right? A very steep trend line. And then now we've got this even more steep or even more parabolic trend line. So, it's bullish until it's not. It's ultra bullish until it's not. And, maybe many people are going to be surprised if this target gets hit. Many people are surprised that, it broke back out above this target here. But we're just doing what we always do, and that's stare at the charts. And the charts are saying that it's ultra bullish on the monthly, it's ultra bullish on the weekly, and it's ultra bullish on the daily. So, any thoughts on that, Nick?
No, I agree with you. Bullish till it's not, right? And stuff can stay overbought or oversold longer than we think it can. But one thing I thought was cool, and I was going to ask you about it. I just discovered my own ignorance showing here, but I just discovered that the US 10-year is actually a tradable future. Have you ever traded that one?
I haven't traded it, but yes, it is. I've traded like TLT, which is based off of like the 20-year, but I've never traded the 10-year yield futures, right? So, and you can also the dollar as well, but I haven't traded the dollar either. I've basically on futures, I've just traded gold, silver, and then a lot of the, well, I guess it's more of a forex, but the forex pair. So Nasdaq, gold, silver for the futures pretty much is what I've basically stayed to. I try not to like go all over the place. I know you've done a lot better with like diversifying. Like you've traded wheat and several futures assets, right?
Yeah, some of the ag stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So right now on all time frames like daily, weekly, and monthly, the US 10-year yield is still ultra bullish. We're right at that 4.7%, which means, mortgage, the 30-year mortgage rates are getting priced higher probably today and every day, so the mortgage and real estate business is getting tougher and tougher out there. To get people qualified because the monthly payments are going to be a lot higher. So a lot of people weren't buying their homes for, and this is not a real estate mortgage channel, but just since we're on the 10-year yield, many were buying homes based on their monthly payment. So when the rates are this high, maybe 8%, 8.5%. I haven't looked at the 30-year mortgage average today, but if it was at 8.5%, that monthly payment is at least double what it was when the rates were at 3%, right? So that there is going to impact on that, and slowly but surely it's going to impact jobs and for that industry, right? So
yep.
Let's keep going. You got the also coming into target 3, right? We've got the dollar. This is the futures, but this is the dollar. It's right into target 3. It's ultra bullish on the daily chart. It's bullish on the weekly chart. Maybe it gets ultra bullish on the weekly chart in the near future, but it's not as of yet. It's right into target 3. Not ready to check off the target box yet. I like to see a wick at least get pierced into it a little bit. I don't want to see it get rejected before checking off target box 3. And then the monthly chart is also bullish, right? And never actually had a sell signal since having a buy signal back here in September 2021 and closing back above the 200-week moving average. It's really only been bullish. It had a ultra fast move up with going ultra bullish, had a retracement after hitting 3 targets to the downside, missing the 4th target, finding support at the 200-week moving average in hindsight, and then bouncing up, right? So still bullish on the monthly, bullish on the weekly, and ultra bullish on the daily chart for there. I'm gonna have you. Do you have your gold futures chart up, Nick?
I do.
All right, awesome. I'm gonna bring your screen up, and then you tell us about gold.
Cool.
What's happening with gold futures over there?
Well, looks like we've got potentially a little bit of kind of a double top or something like that on there, right? So we've kind of got this area up in here. I guess technically a little bit of a lower high, right, was put in. And now it looks like it's rolling over here on the weekly chart, right? So when we're staring at this one, a nice place to look at it would have been right there, right? So kind of breaks down, retests that trend line there, and then just kind of rolls over with all of the requisite lower highs and everything like that to make you think that we've got a trade that we're on the correct side of here. So when we get down onto the daily chart, obviously an ultra bearish territory at this point. So we've pierced the 30, which, as you say, is kind of sometimes where the magic can happen, and seems to be doing that, right? So pierced that at up here at 1890, and now we're down to 1847 or so. So it is bearish until it's not.
Yeah, and I have based off of the very bottom of your screen where you see where that buy signal is. At the very bottom of that pivot from November 2022.
Oh yeah, right here.
So from there, I have the next lower target around like that 1800 range, and it comes in very near the 200-week moving average. So somewhere from the 200-week moving average, the EMA, is 1780 on my screen, and then you've got the middle of the target is like 1790, and the very top of the target is like 1800. So that would be like the next longer term macro target to the downside. May not hit it today, but or tomorrow, or for that matter, because it's based off like the weekly chart.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's ultra bearish like this, it could just flush right down to the 1800 target box and hit the 200-week moving average. It's possible that it just flushes down and hits that. So yeah, you've got the SMA. I mean, close enough, right? Whether it's the MA, EMA, SMA, whatever it is,
it's definitely getting there.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter because I just have it as on my screen as like a bookmark, anyways. But just kind of it does come right around to that third and final target right there around that 1790. 1780, 1800-ish, and maybe it does flush right down because it really just dropped down from we'll flip back and forth real quick, but from this last breakdown, right, you can see it just flushed from one target to the next, and it's very quick.
Yep.
Right, literally like 4 or 5 days, it just flushed down the second target, and there's no reversal in sight as of now. Of course, we expect bounces along the way or bear flags to kind of let the moving averages and trending dots kind of catch up. But that's kind of what I'm seeing right now. And it's possible it flushes down to that third target. Tell us about your shorter term silver trade. Did you take profit on that one? Because it was on a shorter time frame, right?
I did take profit on it. I wish I hadn't, but I did. And
hindsight's always hindsight, right?
Totally. That was one thing though too, where I read that somewhere where it was just like a quote, right? Where like that kind of helped me with taking profits and stuff for people, where it was like, I'm going to kind of goober it up. It was something along the lines of, once you realize you're going to be leaving money on the table either way, it kind of helps you to, like, nobody's going to nail the exact top, right? You're either going to get out too early or you're going to watch it roll over on you. Like, you're never going to get the exact, like, to the penny top. So get in, get out, be happy with what you did, move on to the next one, right?
Well, and that's because I think it's easier for you. And we talked about this on one of our streams. I can't remember if it was the private one or in the Discord or if it was the public one, but we talked about this, that, you're a business owner, right? And so the mindset of being in trading as a business owner or an investor as a business owner, well, as a business owner, you want to take profit, right? You don't want to just double down that you're going to get that one big client and that you hope to hit it big, and you make your entire money off of one client for the entire 6 months or 3 months, right? So
Right.
yes, it would be great, but as a business owner, you're taking profit for every client, right? That's the whole purpose. So every trade, you're doing your best to try to take profit on every single trade, treating it like a business. So at the end of the day, profit is better than hindsight of saying, "Oh, I wish I would have taken profit," and now I just got stopped out, right?
And
So
especially on a Friday, right, on futures where the weekend closes, it can gap on you in either direction. Take your money, take your free bandwidth and the mental headspace, and have a nice weekend, right?
yeah, right. It helps with the weekend and helps cover your costs when your Colorado Buffaloes when you're at the game and you're playing USC. And I was just I was just thankful for you guys that you didn't get blown out like Oregon. So I think it's very encouraging, and they played their hearts out. So
Agreed.
you must be feeling pretty proud over there.
Yeah, well, definitely signs of progress in the right direction. That is for sure.
Definitely beats last season, right? So
Brutal.
so anyways, so that's silver. So what do you this is what I'm kind of seeing on silver. I'm gonna flip back over here real quick. So this what's gonna happen to gold, right? This is a valid question because gold hasn't retested the 200-week moving average, right? Is gold maybe somewhere back in here where it's breaking down? And then there's that retracement and a lower high being put in, and then breaks down further, right? And then now you can see prices back below the 200-week moving average. If you flip it over to gold, it's like silver is already down here at the 200-week moving average. And of course, they're separate assets. And of course, we trade them individually first and foremost. But sometimes there's a canary in the coal mine, and sometimes there's leading, and sometimes there's lagging assets. So is silver leading the way to the downside of the targets? And if so, is gold going to follow next, Nick? What do you think?
It's definitely possible. And I would say probably pretty likely, right? Um, those two are very, very, very correlated. And so, like we've talked about that before, right? Where if you miss the move on the Nasdaq, go find the move on the S&P or whatever it was. Silver and gold is as good an example of that as anything. So if one is shaping up and kind of looks like the other did 4 or 5 days ago, decent chance that that's where that's headed as well.
Yeah, it just seems like it's continued to trend that way, and it just seems like target three. The probabilities whether it happens today or tomorrow, right? Because it could, of course, put in a lower high and get some sort of a retracement or a bear flag or something similar to silver has been doing. It also could just flush straight down because the weekly chart is bearish, the daily chart is ultra bearish. So it's a matter of like if you're already in a position you thought it was going to continue downward, you're most likely still holding it if it was based off of the daily chart, and you're trying to push it as far as you can to the downside. But it just seems like target three to me, the probabilities continue to stack. And then, of course, oh, by the way, you have a 200-week moving average. And if it does start to break down from the 200-week moving average, similar to silver, I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever, right? So,
Totally. And if you look at the monthly chart too,
ooh,
silver, we're 2 days into the month or whatever, right? But silver had a confirmed sell signal on the last candle, and now gold is pending, right? So just one more thing that kind of shows us that maybe silver's leading the way because those charts look the same on the monthly chart, with the exception of basically silver being one tick ahead or whatever.
yeah, exactly. And then you had a candle close back below the trending dots too on the monthly,
Yep.
right? And then silver, you had that candle close below the trending dots, but there was a sell signal. So maybe it won't go as low as silver as well, because sometimes the assets won't hit the same exact targets because one might be a little bit more stronger than the other, right? So maybe silver hits lower targets, whereas Bitcoin doesn't hit not Bitcoin. where gold doesn't hit all the same targets as silver to the downside. Maybe it hits like 3 out of 4, where silver hits like 4 out of 4, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's something we're always going to take a look at. Let's look at the VIX real quick. So the VIX, we were talking about it back here, then it came back down. We talked about it here where it had that buy signal. It's still bullish on the weekly chart, right? 2 targets have been hit so far. The daily chart looked like had that breakout again, right? Came up, hit that 2 targets. And this is exactly what we talked about before it happened, was that VIX is a wild animal. Why? Because it's the volatility of the S&P 500. So we literally drew this out on the live stream, something crazy like that. Obviously, I was drawing it out as an over exaggeration, but it's not that overly
You're not that far
exaggerated.
off.
It's not that far off, right? Talk about, have you traded this? Because there's the VIX futures on this. Have you ever even wanted to attempt it, Nick?
No, it scares me. It's too crazy for me. I've never done it. I do know that you can do it, but I have never done it.
Well, I have a confession to make.
Did you do it?
Not on futures, but I've traded the VIX on options more than once and have caught lightning in the bottle, right? Obviously, when you're going high risk on high risk multiplied by high risk, what do we always say when you've got all this high risk across the board on multiple levels? What would I do as running this as a business? What would I do, Nick?
You're going to set your stop loss to 0 real quick, and then you're going to take profits early and often.
Do you think I would use more money or less money?
I would say that you would use substantially less money, probably like a lunch money type situation.
100%. So that's what I was getting at, is that if it's high risk multiplied by high risk multiplied by high risk, that's fine. I'm all about it, but I'm going to use more of like lunch money, like Nick just said, because I got to lower the risk amount at some point, right? I don't want to go all in, push all my chips in, and then all of a sudden this high risk asset comes back and bites me, and then I just took a huge substantial loss, right? So if I'm going to use a lot of high risk and doing VIX on options like I have in the past, then I'm using less money. So that's my point there. So we're about 27 minutes into it. I want you to take back over on the charts, and I don't know if you see here like Ethereum, Solana, Cardano, and I want to kind of take a look at your take on it, and then I'll flip back the chart is back and forth with you. Cool. And then we'll take a look at the Magnificent Seven. I want to get to some of the comments as well here in a minute. And then we'll just keep going. Let's just keep flowing these charts hardcore. And so I'm gonna add you back on your chart.
Cool. Yeah, let's jump into Ethereum. So obviously we had kind of a breakdown below the 50 and stuff on ETH. Came back up, seems to be finding a little bit of resistance here at the 50 on the weekly, right? We drew this trend line out here from what was this kind of relatively minor bullish divergence back here really a year ago, I guess, right? Last summer. And then it was kind of cool that basically this came and just bounced right off of it, right? So that was something cool to see. When we're on the daily, though, we've had this breakout, right, up and over the very long-term line here. And then it's going to be interesting, right? So is what it's doing right now, is this just going to retest and then kind of go from there, right? Or was this a nasty fake out? Maybe we get some action like that, kind of consolidates more and either breaks out to the upside or it finally rolls over and dies, right? But I think that's what I'd be looking for on Ethereum. Am I missing anything?
No, I was laughing because I accidentally hit the large subscribe button.
I saw that. Yeah, I was like, "What?"
I was like, "Oops." So, yeah, I mean that's what I'm kind of seeing too, and I think it's going to play out similar to possibly what I kind of drew out on Bitcoin, where come up and hit possibly target 3 and target 4, and maybe put in a lower high, and then maybe it kind of rolls over after that, and get it some sort of a nicer retracement. It's too early to say, but if it came back up on the daily chart, and for example, here, let me just, where if it came kind of back up like this, right? Hit target 3 like Bitcoin, maybe target 4, and then kind of rolls over after that. That's what I kind of see on Ethereum. So
Yep.
we'll see what happens, but just playing it out whether it's going to hit target 3 or target 4 or not, right? So what about on Solana?
Let's see what we got. All right, where are okay? We are up against it, aren't we here? So on the weekly, right? So from the like long term bearish divergence, up against that, right? Up against that. So we'll see where that goes. Breakout to there opens up all kinds of targets, right? Like all the stuff up in here, even. So that's huge, right?
Yeah.
When we get down back onto the daily, you know, kind of has done what it's been doing, right? So had that nice breakout. Snipers would have gotten in right here at just about $20, right? And then now we're getting up here into the $24, $25 range. When we kind of see where we're at here, you know, so that's only at the 0.5, right? So is that going to be something where it, you know, sort of rolls over and that was it on the move? Or, you know, does it kind of consolidate in here, maybe find some support, back test the 70 on the daily and then go? That could be a nice one though.
Yeah. So if you were to kind of guess where it could kind of break down timing wise, how would you draw out one of your trend lines, you know, like timing wise? Like if it was like a mental stop loss based off of a trend line where it's trending upward, how would you draw it out?
If I'm in it right now, I'd probably take profit when we break this trend line here.
As like kind of like a, hey, this seems like it's over. This is break in case of emergency, and it's breaking down, right?
Yeah. And that may not necessarily even be the high, right? But we've talked about this before where I've learned enough about myself, and I think you're the same way, to know that might have been kind of the juice of the move. Now we need to go sideways a little bit and figure out, you know, do we go there, right? Do we go, like, where does it go? But I'm pretty content to sometimes just take profits and not ride this sideways action. And then once we get to, you know, the inflection point of where it decides to go, we can re-enter at that point. But, you know, save the heartache, save the bandwidth, right?
Yeah, and then also like if you were to draw out 2 more price trend lines, like you're adding on to that upward price trend line that you have right now, and now you start building it out, yeah, from there to there, and then build out one more, like even steeper one, uh, right? So kind of watching like that almost like because you know it's looking ultra bullish on the daily chart, so you're kind of watching and like you know it's already into some key target areas. So if it's starting to break down from that more parabolic trend line and it's already at like key target areas, like try to push it as long as you can because it still is ultra bullish. Knowing that, hey, if it's breaking down from that more parabolic trend line and it's already hit some key target areas, then, you know, when would now be a good time to take profit, right? So
Yeah.
that's what I would be kind of looking at personally, and I would try to push it as long as possible. And but it's already hit target 3 of 4 so far. Will it? And then the other side of the coin is, you know, if it does get through like your target box up there and then flips it into support, then you could start saying, hey, well, maybe this isn't going to be a bigger move like you showed on the weekly chart. So it's always about taking it level by level because it's got to get through that resistance first before even worrying about, like, of course we can have the targets laid out for the higher targets and be ready for a move like that and be open to it. But first you'd want to like see price get through that final big target box and see if it flips it into from resistance and support, and then start looking at like, hey, is the weekly chart still bullish? Is there still room to the upside, right? So that's kind of what I'd be looking at. What else?
Yeah, and I was going to say one other thing too, and I think we touched on this last week, is this confluence here where you get the upper arm of the anchored VWAP coming in pretty close to the golden pocket is a really big, tough piece of resistance sometimes. So if you're in a profit taking mode, that might not be a totally terrible place to think about taking at least some, right? Because that thing can sometimes, you can kind of wick up into there and then it can bounce off fairly quickly. So just something to keep in mind. I'm not saying that's what you should do, but just something to have in the back of your head.
Definitely. So that's why we like a confluence of targets, because when there's a confluence of targets, you're not just relying on one target over and over again. You're relying on two major reasons or more coming together. And when it's hitting that confluence of targets where maybe you should consider taking profit, right? That's why I want to stack those probabilities that price is going to go back and retest those areas, right? So that's what I'm looking at. What about Cardano? Do you have a Cardano on there?
Yeah, we'll put one up here.
Okay, awesome.
I'll just delete everything. We'll start over here. All right. So weekly on Cardano. Nice bullish divergence, right? Just to draw this out for the fun of it. So if we, that would be the big time move, right? Would be something like that on the weekly, but still sitting at 41 on the weekly means we've got potentially enough juice in the tank for a move to the upside. And then, I think the thing here that potentially worries me, right? We've been kind of having this bullish divergence back a little bit. So maybe we could kind of draw even our, certainly our fib lines, we could draw them like that, right? So getting kind of hung up at the 236, but even if we draw it, from up here, right, it's still kind of sitting in the same area. So it's taken a lot of RSI gas, if you will, to get us not much of a bounce. And so that kind of has my attention a little bit. It's something I notice for sure. Just be wary, right? If this is one where you bought the breakout, maybe the humongous targets aren't necessarily on the table with this one, but maybe they are. And so just especially keep a close eye on it, because that just looks a little funky to me. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, 100%. And, on mine, that's what I'm kind of looking at too. I don't even have any like bigger targets up there drawn as of now, right? I just have these smaller targets. Like even though like they're like smaller, shorter term targets, there's still some, worth it, right? So you got the 8, 16, 25, and even possibly 30%. So it would have to get through all of this and then flip this resistance and support before I would worry too much about the higher targets. And especially if we're still thinking that Bitcoin's going to put in that lower high similar to silver and gold and then break back down similar to silver and gold, then I would expect, crypto assets to be doing something similar, right? So, and of course, in the history of, the 4-year halving cycle or the 3.5-year halving cycle of Bitcoin stuff, there could be one more shakeout, one more downside before the halving. And so that would kind of line up with Bitcoin putting in a lower high or building out a right shoulder and coming back down to test maybe lower prices like 24,000, 22,000, whatever it turns out to be. And so I would expect crypto to do something similar, right? Or not at least take off. Of course, there's always going to be exceptions to the rule. And, one of the crypto assets just gets pumped and pushed up higher. So always trade the chart in front of you first and foremost, but don't be caught off guard thinking it's going to go higher if everything else is kind of going downward, right? So that's the way I kind of look at it. I say we come back to this. I want to jump over the Magnificent Seven, just take a quick look at it real quick. And you can see that they're all bouncing. And you can see that we've been talking about this since the breakdown, right? That at some point, and I even left the potential targets of where a higher low could be put in. Because remember, a higher low is what, Nick?
Bearish.
A higher probability that a higher probability to short the bounce, right? So
Correct.
you haven't been seeing as many live streams as I've been doing, but we'll get you on here. So we expected this, right? We even breaking down from here, coming back to retest target one. You know, we even talked about this on the live streams where it could be like it breaks down and then it comes all the way back up and traps some more longs to the upside and then kind of like fizzles out and puts in that lower high, whether it's down here, it's up here, or all the way back up here, right? Wherever it is, it kind of puts in that lower high. And then that would be your higher probability to short the bounce, right? But overall, we're still looking at, hey, we still have these lower targets. Target two, still have target three. You know, we've got a, a magnet, a very trustworthy magnet down here that never fails us, right? We have this 20% gap that is still open, and that's a massive gap. That's not a 1% or a 0.5% or even a 2% gap. That's a 20% massive gap. So eventually expecting it to get filled at some point. And we've got bearish divergence going back to May 2023 that, in my opinion, hasn't been cleared yet. So it seems likely that we're going to see lower prices sub 400, which means, you know, price breaking back down below here, price breaking back down below here, target one, and that would mean signaling target two. And then what's to stop it from closing this gap at that point if price is breaking back down from here? So that's kind of what I'm seeing on NVIDIA. Meta, we're going to kind of get through this kind of quickly. Not much to report other than what we've already talked about on the previous live streams that, you know, after the bearish divergence, lower high, would this put in another lower high, right? And then continue to possibly roll back over and then even possibly put in another lower high there, right? So that's Meta there on the daily chart. Amazon, I want to get through this quickly because we got a lot to cover. Still want to get back to some of those crypto assets and then of course get into everyone's comments and, you know, chart some, have Nick do some chart work over there for the requests too. That would be awesome. How much time do you got today, Nick? Nick, can you hear me?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was on mute. I don't think I'm up against anything. I think I'm all good.
Okay, awesome, cool. All right, so this is again, this is Amazon had that bullish divergence. I'm sorry, bearish divergence, right? So you had that bearish divergence going all the way back to June as well, and you can see that it broke down. And then we were looking for, after the breakdown, it just missed target two. It just missed 200-week moving average. So there was a big player out there who took profits right before. They front ran some of the, you know, the sniper 2 targets down there, and just right before it hitting target 2 took profits. And then you can kind of see where, you know, it's going to put in this lower high, whether it closes this gap first or it's just putting in a bear flag, one or the other, right? Doesn't really matter. But whether it's a lower high here, comes down his target 2, or it comes all the way back up and closes this gap or even higher and puts in that lower high and then continues downward from there. So that's Amazon. And a lower high has not been put in yet on Amazon as of yet. Microsoft, we drew this out on the previous live streams as well. And we kind of mapped it out as like, you know, would we see some sort of a bear flag, a lower high get put in, and then continue downward to the lower targets, right? So that's what we're still continuing to watch. Of course, the bounce could be much higher and put in a lower high up here as well. So, you know, it's waiting patiently for that to happen. If you bought that even without a buy signal, you know, if you're buying that dip, you better sell that rip, as they say, right? So that's Microsoft looking there. Tesla, we covered this as well. The breakdown, is it going to put in a bear flag or put in that lower high, right, on Tesla? Continue to watch that. It's back up into the trending dots. We talked about back at back here a couple live streams ago, would it come back in and retest those trending dots? Let the moving averages catch up, let the trending dots kind of catch up, put in that lower high, and then continue downward from there. Apple, similar thoughts there. Do you have this small, tiny gap up here? Maybe it could rally or put in another bear flag and continue downward from there. Apple, I want to take a look at because it's one of the one of a couple Magnificent Seven stocks where the weekly chart is still bearish on the weekly chart, and you've got the trending dots way back up here at like 181 ish. And so maybe it's just kind of letting the moving averages and the trending dots catch up, put in that lower high, and then continue downward, right? So that's what we're watching on Apple. Google, we go back to the daily chart, and then we talked about this as well, right? So it's just a quick recap. Bearish divergence, breakdown, barely pierced target one. Is it going to put in this lower high back up here, close that gap? It's already closed the gap, right? And then we're going to wait patiently and wait for that potential lower high, bear flag, whatever you want to call it, get put in and then break back down. Whew, that was a lot.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that, Nick?
No, makes a lot of sense. Seems like a similar pattern kind of across the board, but yeah, makes sense to me.
Awesome. We're going to have you do some chart work over here, so get ready. Let's go through the comments. Talked about some of already. Could we do Algo? So Aldo, could we do Algo crypto? What do you think, Nick? Could we do it?
On it. Let's do it.
All right. So I'm going to add your screen back up here. And before Nick jumps into this for you, Aldo, is everyone hitting the like button? Remember, the goal is 100 likes today. We got Dr. Nick on here. We can't make him sad by not getting 100 likes. Come on, please help Dr. Nick get 100 likes today. I know he really wants it. And if not, don't make us put this big subscribe button on here. So, all right, Nick, what do you got? What do you got over here on?
I just liked the YouTube stream myself here, so we're all set on that. All right, so Algorand here. So, man, just bled to death, right? Look at this thing. So when we talk about from March 2020 lows, right, the proverbial COVID crash, we had the big move, and now it's basically done a complete retracement, right? So there is there's been some pain there. So when we're looking at it, 36 still on the weekly, right? So really, really bearish territory. You can maybe make the argument that we've had a little bit of bullish divergence or what some people may call like exaggerated divergence, right? Where basically this has kind of stayed relatively flat while this tends to kind of taper down. So, a sign of life, maybe not the biggest sign of life, right? But I think maybe, when we go down onto the daily chart, similar to Solana, right? Where we've kind of had this like fairly significant RSI move, right, to the upside, where you could even maybe say like, it broke out of that or it broke out of that. And, and is it retesting that, potentially, right? But, again, if we're going to draw it from there, right, we're going to basically put our fibs all the way up here. And again, we haven't even gotten halfway to the 236 from that, right? And so, if we start coming down, it's just doesn't seem like it's showing a whole lot of strength here. And so I think the biggest thing to watch is going to be, does it maintain this level here, or was it kind of a fake out? It rolls over and dies. But with weekly RSI being at 36, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of gas in the tank.
Yeah. So if you kind of zoom in on the chart a little bit for the daily, let's really dive into like the daily candles real quick. So if you were to start building out the upward trend line on the candles, then kind of like when you're going to know, and then maybe one more, like the first from that last wick that you just did, and then the very next wick, and then kind of zoom in on it. And that would be kind of like, that would be like if it starts breaking down from that, that first trend line, then the move is over. right?
Yep.
So that's the way I'd kind of build it out and try to use it as a mental stop loss. And it looks like even on the more vertical trend line that it could be holding and maybe it flips around by the end of the day. And you even got the trending line trending back up.
4 touch points on it, right? Too, and that's a good trend line.
Yeah, so I'd be kind of watching that, and maybe there's some room to, even if it comes back down, test the bottom trend line. It could bounce all the way back up. So, what are you seeing on the lower time frames, like maybe the 8 hour?
Yeah, I was just gonna kind of save that on there. So kind of have to redraw these a little bit, right, for the
Yeah.
lower time frame, but actually maybe it'll just be easier to draw a new one. Was that exactly what you were talking about? Kind of the start of it?
Yeah, it's possible, right? So that's the thing about the lower time frames is there's more fake outs, especially in like, lower cap markets where it moves very quickly, right? So it can move up or down. So you just got to decide what you're going to be on. I can see your MACD hasn't crossed over negative yet. It's just kind of catching back, letting it catch back up. But is it hooking, right? I mean, so it's a lot of speculation. Maybe it's going to retrace a little bit before making a move higher, or was that it? Like depending on what time frame you're on, you could look at it 10 different ways, right? So
Totally.
All right, so let's keep going. Thank you for doing that. Let's
Mhm.
see, Emmanuel. I shared my BTC trade. Shout out to Emmanuel, one of our snipers in the Discord. Scalp of the day, working good so far. On the scalp, I'm guessing it's probably a short. What do you think?
I'd say let's go look.
So if it's a scalp, it's probably on the 1 hour or lower time frame, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a scalp would be like probably like a 5 minute, like you've got. But yeah, if you took that scalp on the 5 minute chart, you had that reversal candle, you had the sell signal, and then you had that lower high, right? The higher probability where it almost looks like a bear flag, and then you've got up above that, right? That very first one. So if you go all the way to the top on the 5 minute, you had the reversal followed by the sell. Then you had like almost like a bear flag lower high, and then boom, dropped down. Yep, just like that, and then boom, you had that big move down from there. So if that's what let us know, Emmanuel, of what time frame you're on for that scalp of the day on Bitcoin. But if you're scalping on the 5 minute chart based off of that, that's awesome. Good job.
And then also too, I think it's cool. The way I have this drawn out, Jesse, is probably not super obvious to everybody, but this darker lined Fibonacci 236 level is actually the weekly fib, and so that's exactly what's causing the resistance here. I mean, all the way down on the 15-minute chart, right? Like came up, rejected, tried it again, rejected. So that's kind of interesting how higher time frames, right, are always kind of in play even on the lower, and tend to be pretty powerful in that regard.
Yeah, and you can kind of eyeball it where like the middle of that huge 5 minute candle that pushed up, like you can kind of eyeball the cursor of where like price would want to come back to, like, and do some sort of a retracement as well, even on the 5 minute. This is a 15-minute chart, but somewhere around that, you can kind of eyeball that huge move up on that candle. There's not a lot of action there. It just got pushed straight up. So you can easily eyeball where those price targets would come in and on this lower time frame. So you could always find a trade, whether it's the 5 minute, 15-minute, or whatever, or a different asset on the daily chart. So that's interesting. Okay, let's keep going. That's Emmanuel. Thanks for sharing that in the Discord. I appreciate it. G-Rod, good morning. Good morning, G-Rod. Vince, been short on Caspa. Cass looks ready to roll. Wish my rune shirt filled it, rejected off of the weekly 100 MA perfectly. So let's take a quick look at Cass for Vince.
Not a lot of information on the weekly. Pretty strongly diverged in the bearish sense, but not a ton to work on there, right? So kind of hard to draw much of a trend line there to work with. With that said, though, on the daily, I mean, right, we had our bearish diversions kind of starting back here, very much in play there. Was that the lower high? And now do we roll over? He might be onto something with this one for sure. You want to be real aggressive, you can kind of play it right there, right?
Yep.
If you want to be a little more conservative and kind of see where the proverbial where this thing's going, maybe it has to consolidate and break down to there. So,
and it looks like that those lines are like parallel too. So
yep.
It kind of lines up. Like you can almost even clone those trend lines and probably they work out.
Totally. And it, what says it doesn't bounce around in here, right? And then kind of do one of those.
Well, and that's the thing is, there is, it looks like on your daily chart, there is bearish divergence.
Mm-hmm.
So is it putting in that lower high right now in the daily candles? It's too early to call it, but is it putting in that lower high on those daily candles? Because you got the bearish divergence. And now if the candle closed like that, where it's at right now, it looks like it could possibly be a lower high,
Mm-hmm.
but like I said, the candle hasn't even closed yet. And then you probably want to see a little bit more follow through. So if you drew a price trend line up from that last pivot, the very last one where the last buy signal was, well, yeah, you could draw that one out too. But and then from there, draw that one up. I mean, if it starts rolling over from that, it looks like that lower high would be put in, right?
Yep.
So
definitely.
Yeah, so that's a good point. It could be, Vince, that been short on Caspa, looks ready to roll. It looks like it could be starting to roll over, and Nick's got the trend lines drawn out the way we'd want to look at it. So good call on that one. It's potentially putting in that lower high. Let's keep going. Andre, I'm late. What's up, guys? Sorry, Andre. Welcome back. And Andre, make sure don't miss any of the stream, so you can always go back and replay it. You can even replay this on 1.25 speed. Of course, you want to be at the regular speed so you can catch every single second of Nick and I doing the charts. But some people are pressed for time, so you might want to do a 1.25 speed. So Andre, welcome back to the stream. Awesome. Jay James, can you discuss stop loss percentage getting stopped out a lot present? Well, Jay James, we could, but the thing is, like, we could spend a long time talking about stop losses because it's not just like it impacts a lot on stop losses, like when to move it to break even. It depends on how much leverage you're using. Depends on the asset. Like, there's so many different variables that if you want to take a deeper dive, this is a shameless plug, but if you wanted to take a deeper dive, then we do have recorded coaching where it does talk about risk management. There are, it does talk about stop losses, all that stuff. So it's over 60 hours of recorded coaching. You can see Nick's face on a lot of those coaching calls, and 6 other
apologies
snipers.
In advance.
Yeah, I apologize for seeing Nick's face often on those recorded coaching calls. So that's probably the place for it. Here, we want to make sure we try to cover as many assets as possible. We're already getting into an hour here, but I definitely appreciate that and wanting to learn that. So who else? Ermal, please do Algo. Yep, we got that one. Awesome. Got it. Emmanuel, yep, 11 is short from 28 through 20. I did it on the 1 hour chart. Okay. So definitely more of a day or multi-day possible swing trade on the 1 hour chart for Bitcoin. So yeah, you got in pretty early then. If you draw a more steep line from that last pivot on your trend line from the last buy and then draw that straight up. Yeah, I would draw. Yep, exactly. You can kind of see where it even back tested.
Yep.
Like it broke down, back tested it, and then it's a very aggressive move, Emmanuel. But that's what sometimes you got to do is be aggressive. So, good morning, Jesse and Nick. By the way, are you a doctor, Nick?
I am a dentist.
Awesome. So we're not giving any dentist advice on this one, but we appreciate it. So Wes Diddy, Money Making Monday. That's one of my closest friends, Wes Diddy. He's on here as well. Funny to see one of your closest friends who was actually in my wedding. as an usher. Wes Diddy on here is kind of funny to see. Watching his face at the beginning. Watching his face at the beginning. I don't know. Is that me, Nick? What are you talking about? Who are you talking about, Jay James? Let us know. Elaborate. What are you talking about? Washing his face.
Probably me doing something silly.
Oh, yeah. Emmanuel, I'm loving this duo. Keep it up, guys. Yeah, it's great to have Dr. Nick back. Awesome. Nick, are you active on Twitter?
I'm really not. I'm bad at Twitter. I need to be better.
You mean the X app? Yeah, the X app. I'm still not used to that. And I don't want to talk about the X app too much because what if the wife starts listening in and then they're like, what are you talking about, the X app? So
yeah,
I know that joke's going to get old after a while, but we'll keep running with it. Yeah, no, he's not, but he is on there, and you can follow him there and maybe give him some encouragement to post some charts. I think the community would benefit from it. So any other requests? Do we have any requests? Nick, do you have any requests? Do you want to cover anything? What you've got the floor right now. What would you want to chart right now until we get some more comments of the requests to come in?
Let's see. I was looking at something this morning, and I can't remember what it was, but it was one of these forex futures that I thought, oh, that looks pretty good. Let's see if I can find it here.
I've got one I want to cover too, but let's have you do it first, and then I'll jump on. I got to find mine too. So where is it? There it is. I found it.
Where was it? I can't find it. You go first. You go for it.
All right, I'll jump in, and then you could scroll and take a look at yours if you want. All right, so this is, we've seen Bitcoin break out and then hit some of those targets, right? So Bitcoin has hit 3 of the 4 targets so far to the upside of the retracement. We saw crypto break out, and then some of them have hit 1 target or 2 targets, or like Solana, I think was 3 targets, right? So 1 target, 2 target, 3 target. Are the Bitcoin miners next, Nick? That's what the people want to know. Like, what if you missed the breakout in Bitcoin, right? What if you missed the breakout in crypto because you're not blocking the noise? Like, you're not following the sniper charts. You're not blocking the noise. It's okay. Why? Because there's always another opportunity, right? And this is what we talk about a lot. Don't FOMO into that next trade. Don't get in because everyone else is talking about it, and or some of the snipers are showing leverage trades where they've got 100% gain or 200% gain to the upside, and you missed out, and you've got that fear of missing out. What you want to do is looking for lagging assets that are related. So the Bitcoin miners, right? For example, Marathon. So Marathon has not broken out yet, right? There is no buy signal, but there are signs of life, right? And it is getting very close to this downward trend line, very similar to crypto assets. So could we see a breakout in the near future? It's possible. It's too early to call it yet. And you can see it's kind of done a little bit of a retracement. And I don't even think, on a lower time frame, there's a buy signal yet. But there is, so it's still fairly early, right? But there are signs of life. Even on the even on the 4-hour chart for Marathon, you can see there's a buy signal on RSI, and it's starting to move upwards on the 4-hour, even though price came up to about $9.70 and then came back down. So what we could see on these lower time frames is that it came back down, kind of retests, builds up momentum. Maybe it takes a day or two. Like, this is like already into Thursday and we're on Monday, right? And then maybe it breaks out and then hits target 1, target 2, target 3, right? So that would be a very similar move to crypto. Anything you want to add to that, Nick, on that? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, the miners tend to kind of follow Bitcoin, right? So to your point, that's a good one. And then, you can continue to play that game, right? Where you kind of, like we've talked about with gold and silver, like we've talked about with Bitcoin and altcoins too, right? And then you can even dive further into it by wanting to get into dominance charts and stuff like that to see if potentially, that kind of correlates with what you're thinking. So yeah, I agree. I think we're probably going to see a little bit of a move here on Marathon, and in all likelihood a lower high, right? But still a move.
Yeah, and you could even see on like Bitfarm for the daily chart, we did have a daily candle close above the downward trend line. And so is Marathon down here, right? Is Marathon like Thursday for Bitfarm of last week, right? And then you had a candle close above, and then it almost hit target one already. So it hit all these targets to the downside, right? And it almost hit target one, but came all the way back down. So again, these are one of those asset classes that are fast movers, right? Think of this as like um, if it's hitting targets very quickly, target one, target two, target three, very quickly, you want to consider to take profit on those quickly because uh, they could just dump right back down from $1.23 right back down to $1.10. But it could be coming back and then flip back around, hit that buy signal, and then come up target one, target two, target three, and get a nice retracement in. So it seems like it's still early on these Bitcoin miners of a possibility, right? Another one that where price, this is HUT, looks like it closed above, kind of back tested, pushed up, and then came back to the training dots. But you do have like signs of life, right? On relative strength. Relative strength is starting to get a little bit stronger. You got the buy signal here. Relative strength on the daily chart is right at 40, right? So these are some of the things that looking at as opportunities. So instead of chasing Bitcoin, instead of chasing crypto assets, one way to participate is to potentially jump onto something that's a lagging asset, like maybe a Bitcoin miners. Of course, none of this is financial advice. Always do your own research, and we are just here for entertainment and educational purposes. Nick, what do you got? Any chart you want to look at now? What do you got? Let's see.
I don't know what I got, to be honest. I think I'm just kind of waiting on stuff at this point. Just kind of probably going to get a bounce on silver that we can reshort. That'll be fun. That's one of my goals for the week here.
What do you think on Chainlink? Do you have Chainlink? That I know that's like, it's been bullish, right? It kind of seems like it was almost leading the way for crypto assets. So, do you have a Chainlink chart?
I do.
Okay, let me switch it over to you then, and I just want to kind of get your take. Let's start with like the weekly chart, and then maybe the daily chart. Just kind of get your take on things for Chainlink.
So yeah, to your point, right? Definitely kind of had its breakout move. So right there, right? And then is it kind of just retesting that trend line as we speak on the weekly, right? So, but definitely has been putting in bullish divergence since again last summer, right? So it's been coiling for a while. So we had that move, and then when we come back onto the daily chart, right? When we kind of blow this up, so essentially like a double top situation on RSI, right? And then not quite a double top situation on price. So that kind of makes me think that maybe not quite as strong with this 886 seemingly functioning as some resistance here for it. So I think what I'd be looking at is kind of deleting that, right? And then I haven't looked at this chart in a while, right? So this is just kind of where it was set. But and then we could look more for something like, maybe in here, right? So something like that as far as the longer term breakdown. But then, like Jesse always does, right? So we draw out our price action trend lines. You lose that, and we know for sure that that was it. But kind of seems like maybe that was the move, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's into a key target area, and one thing that if you were to go back to the weekly chart and you kind of draw out, even like the kind of zoom in on the weekly candles. Yeah, perfect. And then you kind of see like that last weekly pivot point of the last weekly high that it kind of took out on like the candle close itself. And you drew out like that horizontal, right? it closed above it. And so now is it going to, was that a fake out? And is that going to close back below it? Or is it the week so early, this weekly candle so early that it kind of retraces a little bit, but then ends up closing back above that horizontal trend line? So that'd be interesting. Right now, like today's candle close would be back below the weekly, but it's only day one of the weekly candle. So it's kind of too early to say. It did get pretty far extended from the trending line or the trending dots on the daily chart and the weekly chart. So it seems like it could just be some sort of a retracement or pullback from there. And then by the end of the week, 6 more days, maybe the weekly closes back above the weekly trend horizontal line, right? So like maybe like a 3, 4, 5 day going sideways and or a retracement, followed by like maybe the weekly chart still closes back above that horizontal line, because that seems like a key area for a lot of people who trade horizontals. And so it had that close above it, and but it got pretty far extended. So that's what I'm kind of seeing on Chainlink.
Yep. And how cool would that be if we did get a continuation to the upside too? Because this candle would look like, basically like a spring, right? So like come in, retest, and then it's just going to like have a nice long like rejection wick to just say like, hey, that was support, we're going. So yeah, that would be a cool one for sure.
Yeah, and overall the weekly chart is bullish. And if you look at RSI, it's put in a higher low, it looks like, and now it's looking like it put in that, well, it already put in that, it's already taken out that last high, that pivot on the high too. So
yep.
Already closed higher than that and put in a higher low. So it seems like, on the shorter term, it could be pulling back, kind of let the moving averages catch up, let the trending dots, the trending line catch up. And then from there, by the end of the week, maybe the weekly candle still closes back above that weekly, what was weekly resistance horizontal line could be weekly support, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's still currently bullish on the daily chart. So even though it's kind of breaking down right now, it's just kind of like come back to like key support target areas and then find support and then make its next move upwards from there. So that's what I'm kind of seeing on Chainlink. Let's go to like any other comments. Vince, MP stock. Nick, you want to cover MP?
Yep.
Awesome.
All right. So what's MP been doing?
And Vince says buy at 1550 and 1090 for longer term hold. SQ buy. Okay, so sounds like Vince bought at $10.90 and bought at 1550. So let's kind of, without giving financial advice, Nick, let's look at MP and your take on it.
Okay, so if I bought in, he bought it at $10.
1090 and 1550. It looks like.
Okay, so $10 is down here. That seems pretty good to me.
Yep.
And then 1550 is right here. That also seems pretty good to me. So that's pretty good. When we're on the weekly, right, it's putting in some bullish divergence here. So we've got that kind of just coiling though in this area here. And so a lot of the time, kind of like what we were talking about last time, I don't necessarily like do this, right? But like just to kind of help with like the visual aid, like the RSI is just kind of in that range, right? And so just kind of slow bleeding down while RSI is in that range. You'd obviously like to see kind of a move to one side or another, obviously, to indicate something more substantial than a slow bleed, right? And so, when we come into the daily chart here, we've still kind of got this bullish divergence from back here, right? So, beginning of the summer here in May. So, something to keep an eye on. I think if I'm looking at NP for, a move to the upside, right? Probably looking at that. And then we'll see what happens. We've got nice bullish divergence here. So maybe it just kind of needs to consolidate in here and then go. But to me, is the absolute bottom in? I don't know. Is it bottoming? Yeah.
And what is the MACD showing on your chart there as well?
Crossed over again toward the negative and toward down.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of seeing on your chart is overall the weekly chart is still bearish, right? And you've got RSI at 36.6. I mean, for me, you're already in a position, But for me, it's like it wouldn't be a buy for me because, like you showed on the daily chart, it may take some time to play out. Even though there's bullish divergence, there could be continued bullish divergence. And if you draw your retracements from that last pivot back in like 2020, that last, from way back there, we're probably closing in on like, no, from like way back. Yeah. Or the one before that even, or right around there. Right. So if you look at that, it's like it's closing in, like it's below the 0.786. It could be coming back to do a full retracement or to the 0.886 on there. It's just overall, it's just bearish, right? And right now, you just be kind of guessing where it is, but you're guessing where the bottom is. But if you were to draw out a couple of trend lines on this weekly chart on the weekly candles, you can kind of see it looks like almost like a downward wedge as well, right?
Yep.
So you do have a downward wedge forming. So at some point, there could be, and maybe it's in the near future, we're talking weeks or months, right? As in like near future, maybe it's a downward wedge and you get some sort of a larger bounce, but that doesn't mean it couldn't fall out the bottom first. And so it would be guessing at this point. And so what you'd want to do is kind of let it find bottom, let it find support, and then you're going to start to see it flip back around. And it would take some time for the weekly chart to flip back around and get the ship turned around in the right direction. So it would just literally be a wait and see for me, because I would need to wait for a higher probability before I were to buy. But you're already in positions from a long time ago. So, are you continuing to wait for, you've kind of held through this whole time. So it sounds like you've been holding through this whole entire time since 2020, 2021, when you got into these lower prices, Vince. So I'm not really sure what your plan is. Maybe you just believe in the MP Materials Corporation, and that's kind of your thing. But it is starting to look like a downward wedge, and at some point it could be building momentum up, like Nick said, with the bullish divergence on the daily chart going back more than a year, almost a year and a half. And maybe there is some sort of a bounce coming at sometime in the near future. But all right, let's keep going. Vince just added SQQQ to my stock portfolio with more orders sitting around 1642 and 820 zone. Okay. So do you have anything on that, Nick, for the SQQQ?
I don't really pay super close attention to that one, but I do watch the InQ, right? Which theoretically should just kind of be the SQQQ backwards. So this is my chart I've got for it. Obviously, we've had some divergence and stuff cooking for a while.
And I've got one that we've already talked about too. So I'll flip back over my screen just for a quick second, and then we'll have you. Let's see. Arnold, what's up, Arnold? Did you already cover? Yeah, we covered it a little bit, but I'm going to do a deeper dive on a Bitcoin update tonight for about 10 minutes. So I'll do a deeper dive on that. But we did cover Bitcoin just a little bit. But let's go back here to the SQQ. So kind of showed this and actually did a longer term video on this as well, Vince. If you haven't seen it, the video is labeled high risk, and it's still valid today, right? So you can go back and check out that high risk video. It's labeled, and with the thumbnail, it says high risk on it. So I covered it in more detail there. So we're just going to kind of go here where you had that buy signal, kind of a retracement down, and then you got this downward trend line. That's probably from a longer term one, from a weekly. And then from here, most likely had another trend line like this, right? And then had that last buy signal. So you had that last buy signal here, got these potential higher targets here. And then I drew out, I believe in the last stream, that you have this longer term upward RSI trend line, and it could be you can see like October, maybe the end of October, where it could be continued to be bullish for another month or so, maybe a month and a half, before it could start to break back down. And so what that means is like it could be finding support at these trending dots, or letting the moving averages catch up. And then as you see it going more bullish on RSI, you kind of see it coming up like this, right? Kind of coming up like this, hitting targets. And so that's what I'm kind of looking at right now. It's currently bullish on the daily chart, and it could just be taking a breather, let everything kind of catch up. Looks like it's finding support here at the trailing dots, and then continue upwards toward these higher targets. So these higher targets are based off of the weekly chart. So it could be a longer term potential play. And then you've got even higher targets from there. So we'll see, kind of taking it level by level, but you kind of see it visually where it could be bullish for the next month or month and a half. What do you think, Nick?
Totally. Yeah. And then, weekly's getting up into the 40s in terms of RSI with bullish divergence. So yeah, absolutely. That jives with that for sure.
Yeah. So that's what I'm kind of looking at. I think that's pretty much it. So, I mean, we spent an hour and 20 minutes. Any last words, Nick? Any last words of wisdom? What do you got?
No, I don't think so. I think we're kind of at an inflection point here on some stuff, right? It's just kind of a matter of charting out all the possibilities and watching to see where stuff goes, and not getting too far ahead of ourselves, kind of like we talked about, right? Not guessing on bottoms, but making sure we've got the confirmation that we want.
Yeah, and the thing about, letting the emotions get too involved, whether it's fear of missing out or getting greedy, is if you keep the mindset of, we always talk about, treating it like a business, but also if you keep the mindset that there's always going to be another opportunity, right? So we're in the bear market, and we, right in the middle of the thick of things when we started the Discord, end of February, early March. And I was talking about it back then, and I was saying, take the time to learn now, because there's always going to be opportunities in the future. Now we're a year and a half later, Nick. Has there been other opportunities?
Just a few.
Just a few, right? So there's new opportunities every single day. So if you're brand new, take the time to figure it out, get a strategy, back test it, dial in your strategy, do everything that you can to be able to sniper these markets. We'll continue to sniper these markets together. Thank you for joining us again, Nick, and being a returning super sniper with us on this live stream. We always appreciate you back. Hope you had a great weekend, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks again, Nick.
Anytime. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, my man. We'll talk soon.
Later.